Welcome to Stoic Capsule. Today, we're diving into something we've all faced but rarely know how to handle: rude people. Have you ever met someone so disrespectful that you actually paused for a moment, wondering, did they really just say that out loud? These are the people who walk around as if the world owes them everything. They interrupt, they throw shade, they talk down to others, and the worst part, they expect you to just smile, nod, and quietly take it. But here's the truth. You don't need to lose your temper. You don't need to argue. And you certainly don't need to lower yourself to their level. What you actually need are the right words at the right time: calm, sharp, stoic comebacks that cut through arrogance like a knife and leave the other person completely speechless. In this video, I'll reveal powerful responses you can use when dealing with rude people. These aren't angry outbursts or petty insults. They're clever, composed comebacks that flip the script, disarm their ego, and let you walk away with confidence. Because why let their negativity control you when you can handle the situation with wisdom and poise? And by the way, if you enjoy thought-provoking insights on stoicism, self-improvement, and practical life strategies, you'll love my free weekly newsletter. Every Sunday, I share lessons, controversial truths, and actionable wisdom to help you level up in life, all delivered straight to your inbox. The sign-up link is below, completely free. And for any brands interested in partnering to create meaningful, impactful content, my email is also in the description. Let's build something that truly makes a difference. Now, let me share with you a moment from my own life, a turning point when I finally realized I was done being the nice guy who tolerated disrespect. There was this guy at my old job, let's just call him Brad. Brad thought he was that guy. You know the type, the one who strolls into meetings late, interrupts everyone mid-sentence, hides insecurity behind sarcasm, and confuses arrogance with leadership. I had been working for weeks on a project: data, design, strategy, everything polished. During the presentation, in the middle of my slide, Brad smirked and said, "Do you even know what you're talking about? Because this just sounds like a bunch of fluff." And for a moment, I froze. You know that burning feeling in your chest when your brain is shouting, "Stand up for yourself. Say it now." I looked at him, calm as ever, and said, "Brad, I'm not the one. Try someone who tolerates nonsense. I don't." His smug little grin vanished instantly. Like ice melting under the July sun, the room went silent, and the best part? Nobody came to his defense, because deep down, they had all wanted to say the exact same thing. I was just the one who finally did it. And here's the truth they don't teach you in school. Most rude people aren't bold. They're just used to getting away with it. See, here's the thing. People like Brad and countless others just like him aren't used to being challenged. Their entire life, they've been rewarded with silence, with nervous laughter, or with fake politeness. So when someone finally speaks up, and does it calmly, without an ounce of anger or emotion that shakes them to their core. Why? Because bullies feed off chaos. They thrive when they pull you into an emotional reaction. But the moment you stay composed, The moment you don't give them that drama, they're left with nothing. And let's be honest for a second. Some people are literally addicted to drama. They walk into every room as if they're the main character, and everyone else is just background noise. They act loud. Because being thoughtful or considerate requires effort, they insult others, not out of strength, but to mask the fact that they haven't worked on themselves in years. It's easier to throw shade than to do the inner work, isn't it? But here's the truth: you don't need to mirror their energy. You don't need to clap back louder. You don't even need to argue. What you need is clarity, a calm boundary, a simple reminder that says, "I'm not the one. You've mistaken my kindness for weakness." And that ends today. Because when you stop tolerating nonsense, yes, people will label you difficult. Let them. When you set boundaries, they'll accuse you of being too sensitive. Let them. You weren't put on this earth to absorb other people's fragile egos, fake power plays, or bad moods. You weren't born to be everybody's emotional punching bag. You were born to protect your peace. And here's the beauty of it: you don't have to yell to do that. All it takes is one calm, steady sentence that shuts everything down. "I'm not the one. Try someone who tolerates nonsense." Because I don't. The moment you stop explaining yourself to rude people, the moment you stop lowering your standards, just to be liked, you gain something priceless that most people never find: self-respect. And guess what? You don't need everyone to like you. You just need to stop pretending that you like them. So the next time someone comes at you with shade, sarcasm, or disrespect, don't argue. Don't react. Just smile and say, "Try someone else. I'm not the one." Now, let's move on to the second powerful response. I'm not offended. I just don't value your opinion enough. And it's funny, isn't it? So many people truly believe that their opinion should carry weight in your life, simply because they said it out loud, as if the moment they disapprove of you, you're supposed to shrink, reflect, and beg for their validation. But here's the reality: you don't need to. You don't need to carry the weight of opinions that don't matter. I remember this moment vividly. There was a guy I used to hang out with, the kind who always had something slick to say. Backhanded compliments, fake concern, little ego jabs dressed up as just being honest. One day, I posted something I was genuinely proud of, an idea I had worked on for months. And what did he do? He commented, "This seems kind of cringe. Are you sure this is the vibe you want to give off?" The old me would have defended myself. I would have explained, justified, maybe even argued. But not this time. Instead, I calmly replied, "Don't worry. I'm not offended. I just don't value your opinion enough to care." And I meant it, fully, calmly, no bitterness, just truth. Because here's the part nobody says out loud: not every opinion deserves space in your mind. Just because someone is talking doesn't mean they matter. Just because they disapprove doesn't mean you need fixing. Sometimes, the very people who judge you are the ones who have done absolutely nothing with their own life except run their mouth. And yet, there they are, handing out opinions like Google reviews for your soul. You don't have to be offended. You just have to stop pretending their voice matters. And have you noticed? The loudest people are usually the ones with the least going on. And you know why some people always find the time to criticize you? Because they've never had the courage to start something of their own. They judge your hustle, your content, your style, even your relationships, not because you're doing something wrong, but because deep down, they wish they had your confidence. And here's the kicker: the moment you set a boundary, the moment you refuse to play along, they'll call you too sensitive. Why? Because admitting they're being disrespectful would force them to look in the mirror, and that's the one thing they don't want to do. So let me say this louder. You don't need to get offended when a clown disapproves of your circus. Just remind yourself they bought a ticket. You are the show. That's the real flex. Because when someone tries to insult you, and you don't flinch, you don't argue, you don't spiral, and you don't chase their approval when you just shrug and calmly think, noted, irrelevant. That's power. That's unshakable confidence. That's the kind of strength that can't be broken, because it doesn't rely on anyone else's validation in the first place. And don't twist this into arrogance. It's not. It's simply about protecting your energy from opinions that never mattered. Because not every voice deserves your attention, and not every comment deserves a reply. So the next time someone throws shade, takes a jab, or tries to chip away at your confidence, don't argue, don't explain, don't even get mad. Just smile, breathe, and say, I'm not offended. I just don't value your opinion enough. Watch what happens. They shrink. They stumble. Because suddenly, they realize they have zero power over someone who no longer needs their approval. Now let's move on to the third powerful response. That's a weird way to beg for attention. See, not every insult comes from a place of anger or even belief. Sometimes, people throw insults simply because they're desperate to be seen. You know exactly the type. They walk into a room, scan for easy targets, and immediately go for the low-hanging fruit. Your outfit, your past, your weight, your success, your failures. They say it with a smirk, pretending they're just joking. But let's be real deep down. They're starving, not for food, not for truth, but for attention. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is hold up the mirror with one simple line. That's a weird way to beg for attention. Boom. Silence. Just like that, they're done. I remember being at a get-together with people I hadn't seen in years. Everything was chill, everyone catching up. Until this one guy, let's call him Eddie the Ego, decided he needed to be the loudest voice in the room. He kept trying to make everyone laugh at somebody else's expense. It wasn't funny. It was petty, pointless, and weirdly personal. Eventually, he turned to me and said, "Still doing that little project of yours? Must be nice having so much free time." Now, the younger version of me would have gotten defensive. I would have explained myself, maybe laughed it off to keep the peace. But that day, I didn't. Instead, I looked at him, smiled, and said, "That's a weird way to beg for attention. Do you want a hug or something?" The entire table went silent, because it was the truth, and everyone knew it. That's the uncomfortable reality. People who constantly tear others down usually have nothing going on in their own life. They throw shade because they're threatened by your light. They get loud because silence would force them to face their own mediocrity. And when you call out the real motive attention seeking, they freeze. Suddenly, the mask slips. Everyone in the room sees them, not as clever or confident, but as insecure, hungry for validation, desperate to be relevant. That's what makes this line so powerful. It doesn't attack, it exposes. And let's be real. In today's world, attention is the new currency. People will say the most disrespectful, outrageous things not because they believe it, but because they want a reaction. And when you don't give them outrage, when you give them clarity instead, the game changes. Here's the truth. When you hit someone with "that's a weird way to beg for attention," it cuts deeper than any insult, because suddenly their act doesn't land. Their little performance falls flat. They realize you're not impressed. You're not intimidated. You're not even playing the game. And what's scarier for an attention seeker than someone who refuses to give them attention? Nothing. They deflate, right there in front of everyone. Because let's be honest, not every insult deserves a comeback. Not every disrespectful comment requires a reaction. But sometimes, people need to be reminded that we see through the performance. That their sarcasm isn't clever, it's just desperate. That their jokes aren't funny. They're flimsy shields hiding insecurity. So instead of clapping back with fire, clap back with truth. Calm, clean, deadly. One simple sentence. That's a weird way to beg for attention. That's all it takes. It stops the show. It ends the act. It puts the spotlight exactly where it belongs. On their insecurity, not your response. So next time someone tries to crawl under your skin with a fake joke, a snide remark, or a backhanded comment, don't yell. Don't explain. Don't even blink. Just smile, tilt your head slightly, and deliver it. That's a weird way to beg for attention. Because in a world full of people screaming for relevance, your calm confidence will always echo louder than their noise. Now let's move to the fourth powerful response. Every time you speak. It's a reminder to value silence. You know, what's worse than someone being rude, someone being loud and wrong? There's a rare kind of person who talks endlessly, not to add value, not to build connection, but simply to dominate the room. Their words aren't wisdom, they're noise pollution. And after a while, you realize something powerful every time they open their mouth. It's just another reminder of how much dignity silence actually holds. I remember once being stuck in a group chat with a guy I'll call Mr. Commentary. No matter what the topic, finance, relationships, books, life, he always jumped in, acting like a walking TED Talk. But the truth? Everything he said was shallow, recycled, or borrowed from some podcast he half listened to and didn't even understand. He didn't want conversation. He wanted control. One day, during a discussion, he tried to correct someone on a topic he clearly had no clue about. So I paused, looked around, and simply said, "You know, every time you speak, it's a reminder to value silence." Boom. No yelling, no insults, just truth served ice cold. And the best part, the silence that followed had never sounded so beautiful. Because here's the thing most people won't admit. Some people don't speak to connect. They speak to compensate. They talk over you because they're terrified of being irrelevant. They keep talking because they don't know who they are when things go quiet. And they try to sound wise, but all you hear is a desperate attempt to be noticed. That's why this line is so powerful. It's not just a comeback, it's a mirror. It shows them their biggest fear, that their words don't inspire respect. They inspire the urge for everyone else to leave the room. And let's face it, the controversial truth is this: the loudest are often the emptiest. You've heard the saying, empty barrels make the most noise. That couldn't be more real. Some of the rudest people are also the most uninformed. Yet they wear their ignorance proudly, like it's a designer suit. They confuse volume with intelligence. They mistake sarcasm for wit. They think domination equals respect. But once you calmly deliver, every time you speak, it's a reminder to value silence. The entire dynamic shifts. Suddenly, you've reminded everyone that silence itself is power. And sometimes, not speaking at all says more than any words could. Life lesson: be selective with your words, because when you choose silence over noise, your voice carries more weight than 1,000 empty sentences. Here's the lesson most people miss. This isn't about shutting someone down just for the sake of it. It's about protecting your peace. You don't need to out-talk rude people. You don't need to raise your voice to match their chaos. And you definitely don't need to prove you're louder or sharper. What you need to show them is simple. Your silence is not weakness, it's restraint. Because real strength is not in how much noise you can make, but in how calm you can stay when someone else is trying to drag you into their storm. And when you finally decide to speak, you do it with precision, with intention, not with desperation. That's the real flex. So, the next time someone starts talking just to feel important, the next time they try to dominate the room with empty words and a loud ego, don't shout back. Don't argue. Don't even let your expression change. Just look them directly in the eye and say, every time you speak, it's a reminder to value silence. And then lean back. Watch the shift in the room. Enjoy the silence that follows the silence they leave behind when they realize they've just been exposed. Because here's the reality: when your calm presence meets their empty noise, you win without even lifting a finger. So when someone tries to dominate the room with empty words and a loud ego, don't shout. Don't argue. Don't even raise an eyebrow. Just look them calmly in the eye and say, every time you speak, it's a reminder to value silence. Then lean back, stay composed, and enjoy the silence they leave behind once they realize their noise has lost its grip. Now, let's move on to the fifth powerful response. If you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder. See, most people who insult you want two things: a reaction and control. They want to see you flinch, to get under your skin, to prove they can pull the strings of your emotions. They want to feel powerful by making you feel small. But here's the plot twist they never see coming: a calm smile and this line: if you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder. This line isn't about ego, it's about boundaries. It's not arrogance, it's armor. It's a subtle warning shot that says, I've been through worse. You're not even a scratch. When I was younger, I wasn't this way. Insults used to hit me like bricks. I remember one time a guy laughed at the way I dressed and sneered. "You really think that looks good on you?" I pretended to laugh it off. But later that day, I went home and changed my outfit because his words stuck. Another time, someone mocked my goals, saying, "That's cute, you actually believe you'll make it." And you know what? I doubted myself for weeks. But life has a way of teaching lessons that no motivational video or quote ever could. Pain did it. Rejection did it. Betrayal. Public failures. The kind of experiences that bruise your pride but build your backbone. Slowly, I began to realize something crucial. You only get hurt by words when a part of you still believes them. But once you know who you truly are deep down, insults lose their weight. Their words become just noise. That's why today, when someone tries to disrespect me or poke a nerve, I don't flinch, I don't defend. I just look them in the eye and calmly say, "If you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder. Because let's be real, if you think you can break me now, you clearly have no idea what I've survived." And here's the part nobody admits. Some people feel better when you feel worse. They want you insecure because insecurity keeps you quiet. They want you emotional because emotions keep you off balance. They want you hurt because hurt people are easier to control. But when you refuse to give them what they want, when you respond with strength instead of weakness, you take that power back, and that drives them crazy. Why? Because suddenly they see it, you're not the same person they used to walk over. You're not fragile anymore. You're fireproof. Saying you'll have to try harder isn't just a clapback, it's emotional warfare. It's a declaration of control. It tells them, "I don't validate myself with your approval. I've heard worse. I've survived worse. I've grown through worse. And compared to what I've faced, your little attempt is laughable." You're not denying that people try to hurt you, you're simply refusing to let it in. That's strength. That's wisdom. And that's victory without ever raising your voice. Here's the truth. You don't need to fight every insult. You don't need to meet every jab with equal force. You only need to remind yourself of one thing: you've cried before. You've failed before. You've lost before, and yet you're still here. Stronger, smarter, sharper. So no, a sarcastic remark won't break you. A disrespectful tone won't define you. A random nobody's opinion won't determine your worth. And if they're still trying, well, let them. Because the truth is simple. If you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder. Why? Because you're not the same person anymore. You've built armor from every wound. And now, you choose carefully who gets to affect you. So the next time someone comes at you with a fake joke, a low blow, or a cheap attempt to drag you down, you already know the line. So when someone throws you a desperate jab, don't flinch. Don't defend. Just lean back, smile, and say, "If you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder." Then walk away. Because here's the truth. Silence from a strong person will always be louder than anything a weak one could ever say. Now let's move on to the sixth comeback. You're not on the level to get a reaction from me. Why does this line sting so badly? Because it doesn't attack, it dismisses. It doesn't insult, it invalidates, without yelling, without cursing, without losing control. You're telling someone directly, you're beneath my attention. You don't qualify for my energy. You're not important enough to deserve my emotional response. And that quiet dismissal annihilates their ego more than any insult ever could. Let's break it down. In life, there are usually two types of people during arguments. The first type, they want a solution. They want progress, resolution, clarity. But the second type, they don't care about truth. They don't even care about winning. All they want is to provoke you, to make you react, to prove they can pull you down to their level. And that's where this line works like a weapon. You're not on the level to get a reaction from me. It's not just words, it's a mirror showing them that their little game doesn't even qualify to disturb your peace. Let me give you a real story. Back at my old workplace, there was this guy, let's call him Mike. Mike was the office smartass. Every meeting, he'd throw out little passive-aggressive shots, trying to embarrass people in front of the team. He fed off reactions. One day, I was presenting an idea. Everyone was listening until Mike interrupted with, "Interesting idea. For someone who barely shows up on time." Now I had choices. I could have snapped. I could have fired back with something personal and cut him down. But instead, I smiled, looked him in the eye, and said calmly, "You're not on the level to get a reaction from me." Then I turned back to my presentation like he hadn't even spoken. And in that moment the room shifted. People stopped laughing at his little jabs after that day. Why? Because I didn't play his game. I didn't stoop down to his level. I made it clear, without raising my voice, that he wasn't even close to mine. Here's the deeper message most people don't understand. You don't win by out-insulting rude people. You win by showing them they don't even matter enough to upset you. And that cuts deeper than any insult. Because for someone driven by ego, the scariest realization isn't that you hate them, it's that you don't care. What this line tells them is powerful. You're not emotionally triggered. You're not threatened. And you don't see them as an opponent, you see them as background noise. And for someone who thrives on attention, being treated as irrelevant is the ultimate defeat. So how do you deliver it? Calmly. No sarcasm. No eye roll. Just steady eye contact. A composed tone. And then move on. Change the subject. Continue your work. Walk away. Don't explain. Don't repeat. Let the silence that follows echo louder than their entire performance. Because here's the truth. People who constantly push your buttons aren't testing your intelligence. They're testing your self-control. They're hoping you'll break character. But when you look them dead in the eye and say, "You're not on the level to get a reaction from me," you're not just holding your ground. You're drawing a line in stone. You're declaring, "I have standards, and you didn't make the cut." And now, let's move to the seventh comeback. That was a lot of effort just to sound insecure. Why does this one cut so deep? Because it exposes the very thing rude people try hardest to hide. Their insecurity. They wear arrogance like armor, and they fire cheap shots to feel bigger. But this line, it tears the mask right off. It tells them plainly, "We see you. We know you're not confident you're compensating, and trust me, nothing burns more than being seen too clearly. Ever had someone throw you a compliment that wasn't really a compliment? The kind that feels more like a slap wrapped in a smile, like, "Wow, I didn't think someone like you could pull that off." Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You ever gotten one of those so-called compliments that felt more like a slap? Like, "Wow, I didn't think someone like you could pull that off. Good for you. I guess not everyone needs talent." Yeah, that's not a compliment. That's insecurity wearing a fake smile. It's the kind of backhanded nonsense people say when they feel threatened but don't have the courage to admit it. I'll never forget this one time after I presented at a meeting. A colleague, we'll call him Daniel, looked me up and down and smirked. Well, I guess confidence can make anything sound smart. He wanted a laugh. He wanted the room on his side. But I just smiled and replied, "That was a lot of effort just to sound insecure." Silence. You could feel the shift in the air. He was expecting applause. He got a mirror instead. So why does this line hit so hard? Because it does three things in one strike. 1. It flips the script. Suddenly, you're not the one on defense. They are. 2. It exposes their motive. You're calmly pointing out what everyone secretly saw. Insecurity hiding behind sarcasm. 3. It makes them look small, while you look untouchable. And that kind of psychological burn, it lingers long after the moment is over. Here's the deep truth. Most rude comments aren't really about you. They're about the person's need to feel in control, to mask jealousy, or to cover their own inferiority. And by calmly saying, "That was a lot of effort just to sound insecure," you strip away their disguise. You don't argue. You don't get emotional. You just dissect them surgically. Bonus power move. After you say it, pause. Don't rush. Don't explain. Don't soften it. Just let it hang in the air. Because the real burn isn't in your words. It's in the silence that follows, in the realization that everyone else just saw through them too. And that's the ultimate lesson. You don't need to shout. You don't need to curse. You don't even need to raise your eyebrows. All you need is truth spoken calmly, precisely, and then let silence do the rest. Rude people thrive on chaos. They feed on your reaction. But when you respond with poise, with precision, with quiet strength, you take away their fuel. And suddenly, you're no longer the victim. You're untouchable. Because these comebacks, they're not just clever lines. They're boundaries disguised as words. They say, "You don't get access to my peace just because you're loud." So the next time someone tries to test you with sarcasm, with shade, with cheap little jabs, remember this. You don't need to lower yourself. You don't need to outscream them. You just need one calm sentence, delivered like a scalpel, to leave them choking on their own attitude. And when you're done, smile, walk away, because you've got bigger things to do. And they've just been reminded of a truth they'll never forget. You don't win by being loud. You win by being unshakable.